Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art, where we do deep dives into deep cuts and help you understand why damn things matter. I'm your host, Novo Day, and today we're going to be talking about art in music, focusing on the career of composer Nobuo Uematsu. To hash it out, I am joined by, I'm joined by two guests today. Oh, you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Hey, let me introduce them before we move on. And that is Mr. Philip Church of philipchurch.tech. Welcome, Philip.
Good day.
And Mr. Ryan Selvey of Instagram handle eatc.films. Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah. What up?
Oh, God, I'm excited. Thank you guys for joining me because today we're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Uematsu. Now, that is pretty much my thesis. Simply put, this guy is a living legend. I mean, he helped, let me say it this way. He was a pioneer in moving video game scoring to what was previously honestly viewed as probably a lesser known medium into one of the highest echelons of respected art forms we have today. So my first question for you gentlemen is this: who is the bigger fan?
I am honestly gonna say Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as much as I
Man,
absolutely
I thought it was you,
adore,
Philip. Honestly,
I can't lie, and I can't, especially about again, somebody whose artistic opinion I value and respect so much. I just would be willing to bet Ryan has spent more time legitimately researching. And as much as I love to just put on the this is Nobuo Uematsu playlist,
yeah.
I'd be willing to bet Ryan's got the deeper knowledge.
Oh man, I fell in love with Uematsu probably 22, 23 years ago. I've been going almost every other year. Maybe not every other year. In the past 5 years, but whenever dear friends would come by, he would do it with the AOS or ASO, Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. I'd always buy tickets, and he sat right in front of me, 2 rows in front of me, and I was sweating my balls off. I was like, he's right there, bro. I was like, if I could just, how much will I get?
What does he smell like?
What does he smell like? That's really what I want to know.
Can I just touch him?
But yeah, I've been listening to him for quite a while, and I even, with this show, looking at some other mediums of his that I had not actually come across, that I didn't know one of my favorite, as a child, animes
was done by him.
Was done by him. I had no idea.
What is it?
It's Gwen Saga.
Oh yeah. Did I put that on the outline?
Yeah, I had no idea, no clue, and I went back and I was like, oh, this just radiates.
Oh.
So,
oh my God!
yeah,
I'm
cool.
so happy to hear this.
You were a fan. You were a fan before you knew you were a fan.
Before I knew it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, of course, before we can discuss, of course, everyone needs a little background. So Uematsu was born on March 21st. 1959 in Koji, Japan. He is very famously a self-taught musician. He learned how to play piano at the age of approximately 11, 12, depending on the literature you read. He joined video game development studio and publisher Square, often known as Square Soft here in the States, in 1985 and was there for almost 2 goddamn decades, becoming the legend he is today, before departing in 2004 to form his own production company, Smile Please, Severa Uematsu, and later his own music label, Dog Ear Records, in 2006. Now, there's a lot to discuss here, but before we do, of course, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the novel The Entropy Sessions, a tale of loss, love, and madness, and our past, present, and future relationships with technology. Find it on Amazon and as an audiobook through Audible. Your support helps us continue our journey. Now back to the show. So Uematsu joined Square in 1985, and his first documented composition and soundtrack is the soundtrack for Cruise Chaser Blasty in 1986. But it wasn't shortly after his life changed forever, and that's when he met Hironobu Sakaguchi, that is, of course, the creator of Final Fantasy, he's like, hey, could you mind writing some music for me and my little thing? And the rest, as they say, is history. I want to start with, before we dive into the Final Fantasy franchise and his music there, I do want to start with style. As a amateur musicologist, of course, that is where my heart and soul lies. So, in the intro, I said he was just composer, because that is really how he's evolved, right? He's not just a video game, music composer or just scores video games. He is a true blue composer, and I would argue a classical composer at heart. But his compositions are very diverse, and his focus has always been, of course, he starts with piano figures as centerpieces and kind of expands from there. I often would categorize his pieces as whimsical, light, bright, and busy, and often moving, but equally epic in scope. Now, I know a lot of people argue that he is, he has this dark, melancholic type of compositions like a la Final Fantasy VIII, but to me, there's still whimsy to him. Ryan, let's start with you, as I guess the Yamatsu historian of the group now. How would you describe kind of his style and composition?
Well, his style and composition, I think, is very busy. He definitely has grounded works. I think more with like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII. It's very weird hearing him say that Final Fantasy IX is his favorite piece of work he's ever done. Which
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
he loves Nine, and I think it's definitely the one that sounds the most unique out of all of his work. It's very like medieval, very knights, Lancelot and Camelot and stuff like that. But his sound is very, 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 very busy and very, very, like you said, whimsical. A lot of piano, a lot of
Yeah, geez.
strings. But I love his composition and how he uses each scene, especially with storytelling back in the day where we didn't have, third person cameras following the characters. We had fixed cameras, fixed areas, and he brought life to every area and
Oh
every
my
scene,
God.
which to me blows me away how you can have literally 140 tracks with their own
Yeah. Put a pin in that.
personality. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
In my completely professional medical opinion, sight and sound are like as tied together, at least for me, as like taste and smell. And to this very day, whether it's a song that I am familiar with, and that I can immediately bring to mind, again, both the imagery and scenery across all the multiple games, especially the emotions that I have felt through all of his stuff. And then even if I'm not familiar, I mean, again, I'm not this massive Final Fantasy nerd necessarily. Like, I love a lot of the
Yes, you
games.
are. Yes,
No,
you
I
are.
am. But there's, again, like Ryan might be a bigger one, and there's
I don't
plenty.
know, man. Ryan may be the bigger one.
So,
Yeah.
but regardless, even if I'm not familiar with the actual game, I can listen to other songs of his and still know I get such a clear picture, a mental like painting of
He
the
has a signature
imagery
sound
and the
too.
Oh, yeah.
emotion. Yeah, I mean, you can practically tell the context of like situations and scenes just by hearing his music. Like he's adjectives incarnate in emotions made music. It's beyond like what so many other people were capable or seemingly capable of putting into video games as far back and as long as he has done.
Absolutely. And his, yes, I think, Ryan, you made a good point, and I think you piggybacked on this, Philip, is the sheer volume. I mean, I was trying to put in perspective, especially for our audience here, about the genius, the work ethic, the sheer volume of output this man has done. Because so one video game album can be what, 30 tracks, maybe up to 60, right,
30 at
guys?
like a minimum, I bet. For an
Yeah,
Yeah.
RPG, yeah.
for sure.
And now on average, if you think of like a typical Western, very famous, we'll say a famous band, think of your famous band. And if on average they make one album every few years, and it's like, let's say 10 tracks worth of like an hour worth of music, they may make what, 8 to 10 hours of music in their entire career, decades and decades. This guy does it per game.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, it's in the thousands, right? Like of the compositions he's written, and everybody gets a fucking theme. Like, so the whole franchise has a theme, the game has a theme, and then almost every character and place you visit gets a theme. I mean, and then also to make it not only does he have a signature sound, but he can tie them together well, and his style is very eclectic. I will say that, as much as I do hear the whimsy and he has a signature sound, he does explore a lot of different genres, and he makes the perfect composition for whatever the needs of the game is, or the place, or the mood, or the tone. That leads me to, let's talk about some standout compositions. So he's done everything from fucking chiptune. Even his chiptune stuff, guys, sounds good. To the 40-piece orchestral compositions. I'm gonna go fast through these because I know that you probably have maybe some overlap or your own, because I want to hear each of your guys' own. So Final Fantasy IV's Battle 2, Final Fantasy VI's Terra's theme. I thought this was so well
I love
done.
Terra's theme.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII's main theme, of course, the biggest fucking the stairway to heaven of Yamatsu's One Winged Angel, right? Final Fantasy VII again. Vamo Aya Flamenco, Final Fantasy IX, and I really thought One Winged Angel and some other things from Final Fantasy VII were gonna be at the top, but I really fell in love with 10. Final Fantasy 10 and Xanarkin. That theme for essentially for the game is amazing.
Yeah, and that's that heavy piano that you're talking about. That push on Xanakin's theme but that entire score for that game was very, very piano based. But I think because once again,
they all are.
For sure, they all are. But I think this one,
piano, keys, and synth, he always starts there. It's very clear,
right? But I felt like with Final Fantasy X, because the big theme was love. Like that was like the theme of 10. Man, he pushed that piano so hard, and it told the story.
What's some standouts for you?
The game, I feel like the score that no one really talks about that much, but it's Final Fantasy VIII. I think that is his best work, hands down.
Often considered dark, the melancholic, though. It's arguable in my opinion.
I remember saying this a long time ago to Philip. I don't know if you remember this, Philip, but I was like, I love Blue Fields. I go to sleep to Blue Fields like all the time. It is. So he was like, you mean the overwhelming tone of dread? I was like, I guess so, man. But I was like, I love this shit so much. It is such
different strokes for different folks.
Man, it's great. And I'm not very.
You like dread? I'm not here to judge, right?
Man, he threw it at me so hard too, and I was like, damn, it is kind of sad, but I do. I love it. That and it's usually pronounced Ami, but it is the theme for Balam Garden, and you can just.
I know. I like Balam.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Philip,
I hate to be too stereotypical, and again, just keep showing how I'm not the most well-versed fan of his. But I mean, I still to this day I think 7 and 8, and it's.
I really thought it was going to be you. I thought you were going to be the bigger nerd than Ryan, but I stand corrected.
In many other arenas, absolutely. But
sure.
I think part of it is the emotional resonance that I have with 7, and then just how still 8 was the immediate follow-up. So I'm thinking away the music, he was still just riding some kind of high, because those two were great. But again, I also cannot deny, like you pointed out, 10 also has some phenomenal music. I don't know if it's just because the gameplay didn't strike me as much for 9. Like, I love Vivi's theme, for instance. I love when he gets more mischievous. I love when he isn't just making you feel like, oh, this is a peaceful, beautiful town, or wow, we're about to whoop some ass. Like, he can be evocative of so many things, but when he starts to get really mischievous and stuff, I love it. And I will say a lot of credit where it's due for Vivi's theme from 9, from Final Fantasy 9, to be honest.
Can I ask a quick question then for you, Philip, since you brought up Vivi's theme? Do you concur on what he said about 9 being his best work? Like, he loves it so much. Do you see why, maybe?
I think so. I mean, again, I couldn't, given that all I heard was just the songs at the time, and it's not like I was looking the names up. Like, if I went and picked that soundtrack out, I probably might end up agreeing, and I definitely won't argue with the man if that's his favorite, of course. Like, he's probably right. I mean, obviously, who knows his work's better than himself?
Of course.
But again, it's also really hard to not be partial to the game that made me grow up as a human some, which was 7.
So I have to ask, if I may, Philip. So what is your very number one? What is the epitome of Yamatsu's work to you?
Oh man.
Clearly no Ryan's. It's 9. That's clear.
It very well could be just the overall theme of 7, if not the On Our Way. Again, like I said, I'm too partial. I'm just too damn partial. Aerith's theme makes all my hair stand up on end to this day. For instance, to this day,
wow.
It makes me feel emotions that I almost never feel, and it gets me to this day, especially because it was one thing when it was back on a MIDI track on a Final Fantasy 7's PS1 discs. But hearing the different iterations through the years and how it's grown, and just it's added complexity, but they've never overdone it. I think it just stands to show how, like I said earlier, just emotion incarnate. Yeah, 7 with specifically, I think Aerith's theme being one of the most standout, beautiful songs that I've like maybe ever heard.
One more, and I'm not going to stay on this topic too much longer, but
Oh no, we're gonna nerd. We're gonna nerd out. I have
on
more
Final
questions.
Fantasy VII Remake, there is a song called "The Getaway." It was made for that for the remake, but it is using a very, very hyper energetic notes from the bombing run, and it's when you beat the Scorpion boss, the first boss in the game, and you're escaping with Barret out of the reactor. And I remember when I heard it, I listen to it in my car all the time when I'm like driving to work or something like that, or I need to get like amped. But like you can see the goosebumps.
Yeah, you win. You
You can
win.
see the
You are the
goosebumps
master.
through my clothes. Like it's insane how
He does have incredibly large goosebumps.
Oh, they're massive. But no, if you can, listeners, listen to The Getaway. It's track number 6, I think, on the soundtrack.
Let me ask both you guys this then. Which is better, Final Fantasy VII, the original OST or the remake?
I'd say the original. I'd say the
Yeah,
Don't
original.
overthink
as
it.
amazing as the like revamped or actual orchestral versions of the new one are, you like if anything, all that does is speak to how amazing the originals are. And again, I'll never not be partial. I can never be not just fully in love with 7, the original.
Well, I'm so glad you guys said that because I couldn't disagree more. So I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is the epitome for me because, and I will support my argument. It's so yes, he had a team of producers and co-writers this time around in Remake to build off of his original compositions and the vision that he had that he clearly couldn't quite fulfill and come to complete fruition because of just the technology at the time. And now because they have the budget and they threw clearly so much money and resources at this project. And sorry, Philip, I know you're not a big fan of Final Fantasy VII Remake the game, but I do think it is perfect. We'll talk about that later. Put a pin in that as well. But just the music in and of itself, I feel like between them expanding on the original compositions, clearly using a 40-piece orchestra to really bring them to life, and then them adding in the other producers and other songwriters to kind of, there's just like little touches here and there just to elevate it a little more. And then the mixing and the mastering is just a different level. It is clearly perfect. But again, it's 20 years of, hardware, software, and just, how can we make this better?
Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree overall that again, the new one is fantastic. There are songs that there's a few originals that in my opinion, here and there, or at least they strike me as originals that really get, they get me going. They're amazing. But yeah, I mean, again, overall, I still love the original soundtrack more, but there's one particularly, I believe it's somewhere around like the battle arena. It's something to do with when you're doing the battle arena around the slums with Don Corneo's like mission.
Yeah, yeah.
It just, I binged it. I did my typical Philip, like listen to it until I can't
You
anymore
hate it?
kind of
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
for
yeah.
like literally like,
How long
oh
do you
yeah,
go? A month? More?
month.
I'm
Slash,
a listener
and
that
then
way
I'll
too.
do that again later once it's like, oh, okay, it's been enough time, and then I'll do that again.
So before we move on, let's end with this. Favorite Final Fantasy composition, just one. So not the entire soundtrack. Literally, if you could pick just one piece, what would that be?
I would have to say that's tough, man. I would have to. That's real tough. I would have to
I
say
know,
I would
right?
go back to Balam Garden or Ami
Oh wow,
because
okay, that's eight.
yes, that is
Yes,
8,
eight,
and I
right?
remember also the opening song, Fethos, Lucos, Wisek, Unisec, whatever it's called, Venosec.
The intro to that one is
Okay,
The
amazing.
why?
intro
I gotta
is
give you that. It's
that's
fantastic.
when I was like,
Yeah.
oh, they got money. Like the 7 did so well that they threw a quarter of the budget into this opening song, and that song blew me away. But I remember after that fury of an introduction, that fury of music, and you're introduced to basically your school and military living quarters, and it's just this majestic, beautiful, like swimmingly soft song that is the theme of a place that you're in almost the entire game, at least for 60% of the game off and on. I couldn't have anything playing on repeat more than that song.
Okay. All right. Good answer.
Similarly,
Philip?
again, I'm just gonna go back to probably Aerith's theme. It's too damn beautiful. And then very, very close second though is also same game though, but just the intro / bombing mission, kind of like how you said, Ryan, of just that like that slow movement that like
Oh man, so
and then
good.
it zooms in. It's got like the materia, the Mako running around, and then it goes into the bombing mission and just goes from one end of the spectrum into the other. And it's just such a interesting like taste of what's to come with what winds up being just again a just fantastic game. Just a phenomenal experience overall.
Mine is Final Fantasy VII's remakes. Hollow. It's the music that is played during the Sector 5 slums. We'll call it level mission, that part of the game. And it's all it is 2 lines. It's a series of chords. It's played. Clearly, he kind of mapped it out, I think, on the piano, but it was rearranged for the guitar. And I think it was the correct choice because it's just a series of chords. So a rhythm section and then essentially like a melody line, acoustic guitar that is.
I think
over
it's
the
Hollow
chords.
Skies technically, but yeah.
Oh, I've always
Fair.
just called it Hollow. I guess that's how I found it. Yeah, Hollow Skies. Yeah, I think the original has a different name for
I'm
it
curious.
versus
I'm
the
drawing a blank.
remake. But oh man, yeah. Listen to it later, and this is the kind of stuff that I would fall asleep to. It's that pretty, that melodic, that harmonious of a piece that I feel like I butchered if I try to hum it. Sometimes I
give it a
hum
go,
shit
man.
shows, as you well know.
All right.
I'll edit it in later.
Yeah, that's not some favorite track.
It's like that.
Oh yeah.
So that's a little taste. Yeah. So other well-known contributions to a gaming series is the Saga series, Final Fantasy Legend, Chrono Trigger, Front Mission, Gun, Hazard. But of course, as we all know, and maybe you guys don't know listening, that he is Yamatsu has done a lot outside of gaming. So he's but I feel like it's like gaming adjacent. I really want him to do an actual,
Same.
big blockbuster film. So some of his standouts include I think it's My Goddess or Mount Goddess. It's an anime film. Final Fantasy Unlimited, 2001. He also made a solo album in 1994 titled Phantasmagoria. The anime, I think you mentioned this, Ryan. This is the how do you pronounce it? Gwen.
Yeah, I always call it Gwen.
Gwen
I'm
Saga.
pretty sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I'm sure they call him.
Yeah, we're
I'm sure they call him Gwen on the show.
To butcher
So,
a lot of these. Yeah. I'm gonna butcher a lot. Don't worry. He's also done ebooks. Is there any standouts for you guys outside of his video game scoring?
Now that I remember watching Gwen Saga at a very young age, maybe like 12 or 13, and humming it all the time, especially the intro. But it's just so weird that coming full circle and being like, oh, this dude like resonates. Something about his musical melodies and how he uses his notes and his tones and keys and
We call it voicing, how he does vertical and horizontal voicing.
And it did, because I used to love, and it was weird because I was watching it on some obscure, you remember before streaming, obviously, you could go on demand, and that's where I saw a lot of my anime was on demand, like Comcast.
I was still going to
anime.
Blockbuster, like the anime section of
for
Blockbuster.
Sure. And I was like, well, what is this? Because the main character looks exactly like my favorite Tekken character. They have like a leopard head.
Who's your favorite Tekken character?
King.
Oh, King.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah. King. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on King. But he looks exactly like him. So
storylines with the kids. Come on.
Oh, he's the best, man.
We haven't had a tangent all show. This is your tangent moment, man. Fucking King.
Did you know he's based off of Nacho Libre?
I did not know that. Oh my God. Oh man, fun fact. Oh, I love learning.
But yeah, so I saw this and I watched probably I would say around one season's worth of the show. Apparently it's still running. But I can never find it anywhere. Anywho, I would say that's my big standout. Chrono Trigger was fantastic. The Saga series is fantastic. All games I played maybe 2 decades ago, and I remember loving those songs. But outside of video games, I have to say it's my favorite.
So once again, I am just so much more well versed in his video game music, and I'm not nearly as large of an anime nerd as most people would probably think that I am. And half the time I hear something of his that isn't at least like Final Fantasy, I go to look it up and it's still just another game. But I will like, I guess some of the closest I can get without like trying to stretch too thin after, basically just admitting that like, I don't know a ton of his non-video game music. There's a game called Grand Blue Fantasy that is like super folksy. He really went left field on that one. Some of the Grand Blue music is, you could probably, I mean, granted, I think some of it's like collaborative. It's not all him, but still, like, I think he really channeled something else. And even he said, like, I'm not doing Final Fantasy-esque for this. Like, it's been so long, and that he had stopped doing pure Final Fantasy soundtracks at that point. I mean, again, he stopped doing them alone after 10. So I think in his collaborations, he kind of grew as a composer. And so it's sometime around like the early 20 teens or whatever the crap you'd call them, was some like video games called the Grand Blue Fantasy. Not Grand, but just Grand Blue.
Grand, G-R-A-N.
Yeah, just G-R-A-N.
That's what I know the most outside of his Final Fantasy work myself.
Yeah,
so.
it's just, some of it is just, it's really cool.
Yeah,
Turned it into a fighting game, by the way.
I didn't know. Ooh, okay, God, we got a lot of deep cuts today. Okay, this is important now to the discussion. Philip, favorite Tekken character?
Favorite Tekken character, probably Yoshimitsu.
Really?
That or Jack the Robot. Yoshimitsu's just fucking insane, but I also love Jack's weird, like, like his almost glitchiness sometimes when he would like do that weird side to side flex pose and be like, like, I don't know. I haven't played Tekkens in forever. I only did like 1 through 3.
Oh yeah,
I'm not much for fighting games because I'm trash at them, but
I am very good.
I'm the complete opposite. I grew up absolutely obsessed and love with the arcade scene, and my go-to was Tekken secondarily, but first was Mortal Kombat. Just like seeing like the big crowd, like a big group of people around one cabinet, playing Mortal Kombat and seeing like 2 of the best players in town go at it. Oh, that was my scene, man.
Don't get me wrong. The Mortal Kombats are actually probably the longest standing fighting franchise that I have played, just because they are so simple that I can at least kind of hold ground.
Yeah.
I'll play with friends. Street Fighter's too it's not even one of the deepest games, but the combat system's too deep and I suck at those. So as much as I've tried them and I've stuck with other stuff, I mean, yeah, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat are classics and I love them. And all the way up through the most recent Mortal Kombat, I believe it was technically like 11 or the reboot or whatever. It was amazing. It was actually really fun.
That was the first one I bought in years, was 11. So
yeah,
it was great.
Honestly, same. A friend let me like play theirs, and then after I realized how fun it was, and it was either on sale or something, it was like crazy cheap, so I got it, and yeah, loved it. Had a great time with it.
Outside of gaming, mine is about the same as yours, Philip, and that is the Grand Blue Fantasy franchise. And I'm excited to move on to the next topic because I have a question for you that I didn't put in the outline again, so we can have a little improv. But before we move on, my favorite character is Paul Phoenix, for the record. I'm
Mr. Boulder punching himself before Chris Redfield was punching boulders. Yeah. Paul was clearing highways.
I'm a traditionalist. I'm a traditionalist. I bet you can hear. I bet you can guess my favorite Street Fighter character then. If I like Paul.
Guile?
Close. It's Ken.
Ryan, your guess?
It's Ken. It's Ken.
The other blonde.
the other blonde guy.
Yeah.
I like it. I just like simple fighting styles with a lot of my fighting. And like, obviously then, going back to Mortal Kombat, is Scorpion. That was my go-to guy. I liked all of the flagship.
Making sonic booms pop out of your arms.
Yeah, that's right. I like my flagship guys. So let's move on to concerts and touring. So he has 2 bands, and then he'll go on tour with full orchestra. His 2 bands are Earthbound Papas and the Black Mages, formed in 2002. Now, I'm excited to talk about this section of the show because I think it was you, Philip. So we're going to start with you. You guys saw Distant Worlds, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Tell me about this experience. Oh, wait, well, you know what? For the good people that don't know, tell them what Distant Worlds is first, and then explain the experience.
Absolutely. So Distant Worlds is literally a collection of his Final Fantasy soundtracks that he would play with technically local orchestras. So obviously being in Atlanta, he played with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. And of course, with any good concert, when there is also a visual medium attached to the music originally, there was, of course, a big screen so that they could play certain highlights and clips to kind of, just entice the fans, and make it a little more engaging for all the significant others of all these nerds who got dragged to a concert if they didn't even
they
find the
drag
music.
us to shit too. It's only
Well,
fair.
they do,
It's only
but at
fair.
the same time, if anything you should get dragged to, it's this amazing composer's concert where you at least have a visual medium to accompany it. So yeah,
Sure.
it was the various worlds, because each Final Fantasy, it's not technically it's an anthology, right? Is that the correct word? That they're not all directly connected all the time. So while there's themes that, of course, the creators and producers are always just like, tee this guy's name is Sid again. But yeah, no, they have all these quirky little things like this weapon. There's always an Ultima weapon. There's always a Sid. There's this. There's that. There's the other. So because they're all various worlds and they're all so unique, thanks especially to Nobuo Uematsu-san's soundtracks, this concert series is known as Distant Worlds.
It's fantastic.
You guys went together, right? Or no?
We went to one of them. I believe that, Ryan, you must have gone to an extra one, because I don't remember being that close, but I know that he was at the one that I was at.
We went to, so what happened was the row that we were on, me and the girl because we went separately, but we were at the same one.
Yeah, same show, but not like together.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was with a chick, and our fucking row broke. Our seats broke.
Was your wait? Let's back up. So was your girl into Final Fantasy, or did you feel like you had to drag her?
She loved music, so
this was easy.
She knew I loved Nobuo, so she was like, "Yeah, I hear you listen to it all the time. Like, it sounds good. Let's go.
Listen.
And plus, she loves live shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, we all do. Yeah.
We're sitting there. We're probably like, I can't even remember what row we were in, but we were.
If you were 2 rows behind him, probably 3 or 4.
Well, that's what got me 2 rows behind him, because our row broke, and it like hurt her leg, and they were like, and dude behind me was like, "You need to sue, bro." And I was like, "Yes." And the guy was like, "Hey, you want to go up front?" And I'm like, "Yep." And
she can sue. I'll take the seats.
She can sit here. She'll be
close
fine.
the circle. That's how we got so close. Yep. Okay.
And he was on stage actually when we sat.
He was dressed like some kind of whimsical pirate in all white. There was
all white. Yeah.
It was like this flowing linen-y. He had like a head thing. I can't even describe it.
So it was like a spiritual experience with him being
there. It really was.
It was. He looked like he was about to make sake, like some old traditional
shit.
It was very Japanese, but all white. He was so adorable. Just like, a quick like intro. Thank you for coming. Like a bow. Just all that shit. Just so humble.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful presence. Knowing he was in the room just made it all the more meaningful.
Yeah. And he walked off stage, and then he walked in my direction, and I was like, "Is he coming to say sorry to me for the thing?"
I could see Ryan's goosebumps once again. I saw.
Bro, you saw him. Dude was like, "Hey man, can you move your goosebumps?" The guy behind me, and then he sits down like 2 rows in front of me, and I almost threw up. Like, it was, it was fucking lit. But yeah, man, it is a concert that he throws. He won't be there every time. I don't think he can.
Sure.
It's some kind of Dear Friends.
Dear Friends is another one.
Where it is just a compilation of his music. And I think Dear Friends may be Final Fantasy and other.
Yeah, I think it's wider than just Final Fantasy, because obviously Distant Worlds was just Final Fantasy.
Yeah. So he had a couple. There's actually one in 2 months, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Here in Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you guys this: how was, and this is a jump ball, free for all. Whoever wants to chime in first. How was One Winged Angel live? Oh my God!
So Philip, do you remember what he did or what they did?
Not off the top of my head. I'm kind of one of those brownout kind of guys. Like, I need a jog. I need a jog first, typically.
Sure. So what happened was they did, like, I think it honestly might have been 12 tracks. 12 songs, and I can't remember which one was last. Let's just say Xanargan was last, and the everyone stood up, and the lights went down, and came back on and stuff like that, and everybody.
So this was encore. This was encore.
It wasn't encore. It was some tomfoolery. They were pulling the wool, and he went up on stage. He was like, "Thank you, everybody." I don't know if you remember, Philip, but you're browned out. But the actual chorus started to leave, and we were like, "Damn, we're not going to get it." And then the lights cut off, and then it would boom, 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 and he tricked everybody, and everybody like sat down. He stayed on stage, and that was the one song that he played that he
He
conducted.
actually okay. Oh, awesome. So I do want to touch on this before we move on. So what I love about Yamatsu, and we'll talk about. I want to kind of touch on that a little later in our piece here today, but it needs to be said that he's a big fan of Western music and Western harmonies and
Hmm.
and traditional song structure, and I think his biggest influence is Elton John. And
Hmm.
what I found fascinating, and this was years before Novo Day Productions, I learned that One Winged Angel is based on Jimi Hendrix's Purple
Yep.
Haze.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was the next thing I was going to say.
ex-
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
I urge people that are just now getting into them, and where have you been living under a rock? Hurry up, catch up.
catch
Look for
up.
those
We
things.
all have our flaws, you know.
Yeah. I feel like all of the audiophiles out there, the people that really hear music differently, listen for those Western influences, and I think you'll really it's like Easter eggs, right? So look for those in his work. So this is our next subject is, like I said in the intro, he moved on from Square, circa 2004. But of course, with him having such a presence and being so well known in the industry, of course, he went on to do freelance work besides the touring and his solo projects. And a couple standouts. To me was Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, of course, the movie. And what I was so surprised, this is why I love our show, is I learned so much too, is that he did the theme for Super Smash Brothers Brawl
Yeah.
in 2008. I didn't
Hmm.
even know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So great.
Philip, yeah, expand. What do you
I mean, how could they resist? Like after seeing what he'd done for the decade prior, and again, like he, in my opinion, is very much one of the main, if not biggest, influences of proving that true composers belong in as many video games as possible. And I mean, speaking of a game that has like all these other characters, like Zelda also has fantastic music, but like even
Yeah,
stuff like it's got characters like Donkey Kong and Mario, and the music for those games like Mario actually just barely predates Final Fantasy. And so it's like they're practically contemporaries just by a couple of years, right?
sure.
The first Final Fantasy, I believe, came out in like 86 or 7. Super Mario came out in 85. And if you think about the difference in those alone, it's like Super Mario music was like a jingle. It's just like a melody, like pop, 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 beep, boop.
Mm.
And then like the underworld, the booty, 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 like it's there's no shade at all because it still is like
Oh yeah, I would
iconic.
argue with you
Oh
because
yeah.
those are
They're
genius.
iconic
When
and
you start actually
fantastic for what they
studying them,
are.
they're genius.
But
Yeah.
they're not true compositions. They're just like
They are, but it's
not in
just
the, I
it's
I would love to hear
cyclical.
the
It's not,
I would love to hear the 40-piece version of the
and you can.
be as nearly
Well,
good
well, they're
as
It
some of
exists.
they're
Uematsu-san's
two
music.
sides of the same coin because
It
yes,
does
you
exist.
are right in a sense that the Nintendo, the Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, those were meant to be played in a cyclical fashion, where these were standalone pieces, especially later. When you go back to the chiptune
Well, they were
stuff
still
too.
cyclical though in a way. If you hung out in any town long enough, you'd hear that song repeat.
Right,
It's all
right.
still cyclical.
But a short cyclical piece instead of like a beginning, middle, and end, even with bridges, and completely orchestral sections, even in the chiptune phase. But they didn't do that for the Nintendo one. Yeah, they wanted to keep it more simple. But I guess my argument is they are still compositions
Well, sure,
in the
but
vein
they're not
of the
as
big grand epics.
again, given that
It's
they are
not classical
contemporary.
music, right?
Yeah, given that they are literally contemporaries by just a year or so, and even like from the same country, just the music from Super Mario 1985 compared to the music from Final Fantasy parentheses 1, because who knew that they would have 15 of them later and all these spin-offs within a
Hmm.
year or
You
two
should talk about the
is
history
just
then.
it's just worlds apart.
That's
It's
why they're
literally just
called.
worlds apart. It went from like
It's distant worlds.
Yeah.
it's distant worlds apart.
Well, that's why it's
Um
called Final Fantasy. You know the history, right, guys? That
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
he thought he was going to be done. For anybody listening that doesn't know that, because I hear this shit all the time. They're like, "Why is it called Final Fantasy?" Well, because
How can
this
there be 15 of them?
because he literally thought this was his last project before he was going to quit Sakaguchi, and he's like, "This is it. This is my final, my last try," and the rest is history. Yeah, we're still
He's like,
here.
y'all motherfuckers like this shit? Yeah, and he just
He
kept
killed
going.
it. Yeah, he
killed
completely revolutionized the RPG like industry. You know,
Yeah.
inside
Yeah.
the video game industry.
I think with after 7, 8, 9, and even 10, just absolutely like smashing through everyone's expectations of video game music.
Yeah.
That again, like who would blame Nintendo with their budget at that point after the success of like, 64, GameCube? I mean, Wii wasn't quite out at that point, was it? No, it was still pre-Wii, but still, yeah, it's just like why would they not go for the big dog? Why would they not want the like the granddaddy of video game music to up their game and really make even more people pay attention?
Sure.
So that way when they eventually, I guess, went on to do the Wii and just continue to blow minds, so that way they would know that like we've got our own little piece of Uematsu-san.
To our point, though, if you listen to the Smash Brothers intro from when it started to now, Nobuo's his version reigns supreme. It is so good. It's so fantastic.
You may be a little biased, guys, but
I don't know, man.
You're wrong. You're wrong, Novo. It's great.
I play Ultimate. I play Smash Bros. Ultimate quite often. That's like what I play. Like I play like 2 rounds before I go to bed, and I hear that stupid. I hate.
I will get
hate
those songs stuck in my head sometimes. Even the character selection music.
I hate it.
All right, pull it back, guys. Let's do a Novo pullback. But yeah, let's final thought, Ryan, on we'll say on Super Smash Brothers before we move on.
Oh, that's it.
That it's perfect. Perfect.
It's great.
But yeah, before we wrap this B up and tie a nice bow on it, I do have to say this, that, it took a long time for people, again, just like I said in my intro, because of video game scoring and video game music wasn't quite considered as, it didn't have the value it has today. It wasn't respected. And it took 20 years for people to really, really take notice. And now he has appeared, Yamatsu, that is, he has appeared 5 times, top 20 list of the annual classic FM Hall of Fame. If you don't know what that is, that's essentially it's like a, People's Choice Award for the best specific classical music in the entire world. And he's been on there 5 times.
Well, I'll take this. He is as I think Magneto said it best.
From the X-Men?
From the X-Men, you are
Is there another Magneto?
You are a god.
I didn't think it was going to go that way. Magneto said it best.
Yeah, he said the pyro. And he was like, you're a god amongst insects. And I think as far as composition, especially in the gaming world, the dude is a monster. And like I said, he can literally do it all, from classical to rock to
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And he fails to disappoint. I don't think I've ever heard a piece of Nobuo's music that I did not appreciate. So it's well deserved.
Before we get to the conclusion here, I do want to talk about this and ask you, gentlemen. There's something about Yamatsu that's magnetic. And I think a lot of people gravitate towards him, not only for the obvious, the music that we've talked about this entire episode, but just as a person. As I was doing my research for this episode, I kind of fell in love with, seeing like interviews with him and stuff about his history and his music and stuff like this. There's something about him that is so humble and sweet. And he's just like, to me, he's like this little hippie dude that just
I actually texted y'all the picture of his outfit. Okay, I was going to say, agreed 100%. He also just strikes me as like the sweetest uncle, just this charming, humble man.
Little hippie dude,
just
right?
So kind. And yet, obviously, he's still incredibly intelligent, given how diverse and complex his music can be. But then in his heart, he is just an artist, true and true.
Did you take that picture?
I wish. No, I pulled it from Wikipedia.
Awesome.
Close enough.
Yeah. I think because he is just a sweetheart, and he's very open too about talking about his inspirations. I remember when the internet kind of became a thing and it didn't take an hour to get on. I remember looking him up and going to his website, and he had a page dedicated to people that he looked up to that were in his profession. movies that he's seen, and the scores that followed it that gave him inspiration for certain things on Saga series or on Chrono Trigger. It's like some German boys choir that gave him the inspiration for the vocal part on One Winged Angel and stuff. I thought that was very cool. He was just like, "Hey man, listen to these guys. They're fans. You like me, you'll love them."
Well put. So let's bring it on home, gentlemen, and let's tie a bow on this. I'm going to start with you, Philip. Yamatsu. Why is he important to the artistic and most importantly the music community?
I mean, again, he is decades long career at this point. So, I mean, dedicated and passion are practically understatements. His works are so diverse. And as I stated earlier, he deserves so much credit for proving why composition and a bigger music budget is absolutely deserved for certain games, and that games aren't just meant to be these silly little pastimes, that they can evoke emotion and be true experiences for people. And again, just to re-quote my other words again, he just literally is emotion like incarnate. He's like emotions made music and adjectives incarnate. He is just such a music smith that to me it still goes beyond just the one sense. I like practically see things. I can practically smell the wind or the smog in the air, or just feel creeped out. I mean, he touches every sense. He's not just a musician, he is an artist.
Very well put. I don't think it's really anything other than to agree 100%
Yes,
on
there
that.
is.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. So I'll have to say for sure, when my mother walked past my door when I was a kid, I used to go to sleep. I used to have to turn all of the contrast and brightness down on my TV so it wouldn't keep me up, but I would keep my PlayStation on. And I would go to Balam town and go stand in the save point, and I would listen to the guitar theme for that town, and it was just him playing the guitar, and it was the sound because it was like a port town, so like you could hear the water in the background crashing. And I remember in the morning when I was going to school, that song was still playing, and my mom said to me, "I can taste like the salt in the air of that town." She was like, because of that music. Because she would always ask, she was like, "What is that you're always listening to?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Final Fantasy VIII, blah blah blah, this and the third." She was like, "I can like smell that town because of the music and the sound of the waves and crashing." She was like, "I can almost see it," even though she's never seen it before. And I think for any person who's a musician, for any person who wants to do anything, even if it's film, you can do anything the fuck you want to do, because that dude did all that shit on like a MIDI, like a little
Oh,
bitty fucking
exactly.
tiny
Yeah.
fucking MIDI. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if that guy's invoking that type of emotion for a non-gamer passerby of a kid's room, listen to the rest of his works because you will not be disappointed.
And there you have it, folks. Nobuo Uematsu, a living legend. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank my guests, Mr. Ryan Selvey and Mr. Philip Church.
Very happy to be here.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for listening. But before we go, we got a little extra for you, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top with what we call the gem of the week. If you're new to the show here and don't know what the gem of the week is, it's something we like to talk about here at the end of our shows that doesn't always fit into the scheme of the episode, but we got to give it to you nonetheless. It may be in our radar in the last day or so, week, maybe even a month, but we got to give it to you guys so you guys can dig deeper. Before we go into the gems, we have to talk about our new gem sponsor, and that is Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to zen.ai/artofthebeholder or use promo code artofthebeholder and get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account. Now back to the gems. Mine is short and sweet, guys. Then I'm going to hand it off to you. It's the YouTube channel 8-Bit Music Theory. I absolutely love music theory and
Yep.
diving into the stuff that's way above my pay grade. Way, I can do a lot by ear, but I can't break it down like these guys can. So if you want to understand Uematsu's work, or we talked about the Mario themes, the Zelda themes, you can hear incredible explanations and breakdowns on their channel.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Ooh, the movie?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but
Nor I.
I
Yes.
love A24, so I know I'm
Yep.
gonna see it eventually.
Yep.
Yes, but even with it being not being an A24 movie, in short, it is freaking wild. And I didn't expect it to be a comedy as well. That is one thing that was a very big surprise to me. They did not sell it as such. And it is very much so a comedy that is very heartfelt and very powerful all in itself. So check it out.
I am going to harken back to the early days of Mr. Bo Burnham,
Okay.
especially his special just called What. It's just literally just the word what with a period at the end of it. Most people, of course, he has made waves in the last year or
With,
so
like,
with his,
Inside and stuff,
yeah, with
yeah.
Inside. And obviously, he didn't just come out with that from nowhere. He's been doing this for a while and it shows. And even his earlier work that was live deserves so much credit because it still is so incredibly coordinated. Like, like you of course have to watch it, but the amount of stuff that he actually incorporates of like sort of like extra tracks of audio, having to keep himself on time, having to remember, and basically memorizing an entire hour's worth of show, not just being like a comedian looking down at like some papers every now and again. It just all goes to show how he's still young. I believe he's literally younger than me, and I might even be the youngest person here. So the fact that he's reached such acclaim with Inside, I not only encourage everybody to go back and watch his earlier specials, even his first big one called What is phenomenal. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, his very unknown and unheard of short-lived MTV show called Zach Stone is Going to Be Famous. I think that's on Netflix now.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm curious. I think, again, just because of his fame, that somebody was like, ooh, we got to snatch that up because it was in the vault somewhere gathering dust. And so I'm really curious to see what it was like having him sort of, be in control of this show, also showing like what it would be like to be such a young kid who just blows up to be famous and how somebody handles that in this crazy age of social media and just like having no privacy and just what technology is doing to our lives and our brains and stuff. He's got such good takes on all of these things.
Oh, absolutely. Great gems, guys. I can't I'm really excited to see that movie. And I have actually exactly what you've been preaching is I did that in the last year. After I saw it Inside, I was like, I gotta check out his other shit. It's very theatrical, right? His
Yeah, the live aspect of it is very theatrical, but his like God, when he
very
did that
rehearsed, but
from his
really
second,
good.
yeah, from his second special, that like Kanye rant that he does
Oh yeah.
is spot fucking on. It is so damn funny, but it is still the music. Again, the music is there. That's the thing. He is still, once again, a true musician and artist. When he wants to write a serious song and really make a point, he will. He just happens to be fucking hilarious as he's still doing it. He can interject his comedy all throughout and be incredibly poignant. His Kanye rant is a standout. You can look that up on YouTube or Spotify alone, if just so you don't have to go deep diving into stuff.
Sure.
Although we're about deep dives here.
Yeah, that's right. What God, now I gotta do a quick one. My favorite bit is from Inside when he does the when he's just like, shut the fuck up. Just shut
Yeah, could you
everybody
just shut the fuck?
just shut the
Could you
fuck up.
not?
And he's talking about essentially Twitter and social media, that everyone has to
Yeah.
have a comment about literally everything all the time.
Yeah.
That's my favorite bit. Oh God, I feel that way all the
And it's
time.
too true.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost creepy how true it is. But guys, check him out. Great gems, guys. If you like that, of course, you can check out our stuff at _Novo_day, and day is DE, and at Novo Day Media. You can, of course, check out novodayproductions.com, our website, where you'll find things like the Entropy Sessions, Post Meridium, Adulteration, Cancel Culture Lotto, a lot more in the oven, of course, this show. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, hit that notification bell, do all the goddamn things. I know you've heard this a million times. Rate and review if you're on YouTube.
Click the fucking button.
You have to do it now.
It clicks the button in the basket.
Oh, is that a Silence of the Lambs little reference there?
Maybe.
Put the lotion on the skin. Yes. And
Look
if
what they
you're
did to my channel.
if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to comment all the shit that the algorithms like our overlords. Mr. Philip Church, if just give them a quick rundown. If they would like to hire you for that a beautiful voice of yours, how can they do it, my man?
Very easily done by going to philipchurch.tech. Philip is with one L. You can easily read about a little bit of my background. I have links to the, at this point, like dozens of titles that I've narrated, some of which I've produced. and got a sample. And obviously, I'm on the tweeters and the face bag.
The
That stuff isn't
our
as
overlords.
big. Yeah, that's not as big on hiring me. Obviously, that's just another way to roundabout get to my website, philipchurch.tech.
Awesome. And Ryan, if anybody out there listening wants to hire you for any DP, cinematography, just you name it, how do they get a hold of you, man?
Man, Ryan M. Selvey is thy name. You can reach me at ryanmselvey@gmail.com. You can also reach me at eatc.films. It is my Instagram handle. That's a good way to reach me, and I'll plug you in the right direction, put you in the right thing. I do have a website coming that Philip has been wonderful enough to get going for me, but it is just not ready yet. But it is coming, guys.
We'll tell the good people when it's up and running.
Yeah, for sure. But for the stuff that you can't reach me at, just revert to that stuff, man.
I had the pleasure of working, as far as I know, with my first international author.
Ooh.
A wonderful Canadian man by the name of James Murray. The book is called In a Town Without a Name. It's very much another 80s like tribute. The guy is an 80s guy himself. Imagine Stranger Things, but without the creepy shit. It's about video games. It's about being a young teen. It's about first loves and friendship. And it's definitely a young adult. So whether you are okay with young adult novels or you have a young adult somewhere in your life, again, feel free to, contact me through my website. I absolutely have some promo codes. And otherwise, I'm sure it's available on all the regular things. I believe it's on like Audible and Kindle and all that stuff. But yeah, my most recent audiobook is In a Town Without a Name by James Murray.
Perfect. Oh God. Yes, check it out. I'm so glad we got to plug that guy. But until next time, guys, be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created and hosted by Novo Day and the Novo Day Collective. Facebook.com/Novo Day Media, @Novo Day Media on Twitter and Instagram. Music by A Company. Facebook.com/ACOMusic123. ACO on Spotify. Logo design by Tom Justice, JESTUS, of thejusticecompany.com. And executively produced by Clayton Anderson. All rights reserved.
Arigato.
Bye-bye.